Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes, win a barn burner Friday night against Virginia Tech. Now, we hopped on immediately after that game, talked about what we saw, kind of an instant reaction kind of episode, but we said, we're going to be diving back into this game, talking about what does Miami need to clean up heading into the rest of ACC play. Look, there's a laundry list of things they need to clean up from that particular football game. But my biggest takeaway continues to be that, yeah, look, this is a Miami team. I think a lot of Miami Hurricane fans know this. This team doesn't win that football game in 2023. But when you have a quarterback like Cam Ward, when you have a team that just seems to have a little bit more belief in the big moments than we've seen this team have in the past, that's by far my biggest takeaway. Look, you ain't going to play 12, 13 games of your best football every single Saturday. This is just not how this sport works. Can you win ugly? I think Miami showed they can win ugly against Virginia Tech. That being said, we got a laundry list of notes that we got to get into. Want to pull up some film, talk about where Miami kind of fell short of expectations against Virginia Tech. And I think it's worth noting, and we said this going into this football game. Look, Virginia Tech's a much better team than what their 2-2 record said heading into this game. They were a pick for a lot of people in the national media to be a dark horse in the ACC. Now, they hadn't played very good football up until this point, but you got to give a lot of credit to Virginia Tech. I thought they played a very good football game Friday night against Miami, by far the best version of Virginia Tech we've seen in 2024. So the combination of Miami definitely playing their worst game of the season, Virginia Tech probably playing their best. That's kind of how you get a type of game like this. So credit to Virginia Tech. Plenty to clean up that we're going to get into before we get into it. As always, the Miami Hurricane fans, y'all know it's a blast talking this program, staying up till past midnight on Friday night, doing a live reaction. We do it because one, we love talking this program, but more importantly, the amount of support you guys show the boys, it's amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. Going back, watching that football game, what do you think Miami needs to clean up heading into Cal this Saturday? And without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, let's start with a few storylines that I felt like probably flew under the radar. One, this is a Virginia Tech pass rush that is one of the best, not only in the ACC, but in the country. And Miami played this football game without their starting left tackle and Jalen Rivers. Like, that's a storyline that not a lot of people were talking about heading into this game. I think we all expected Jalen Rivers to play. You get Markel Bell. Markel Bell wasn't horrible in this game, but you could tell he was a backup left tackle, and there were some big plays where Markel Bell, left tackle, definitely, I wouldn't say hurt this team, but definitely led to not a ton of positive outcomes for Miami on the offensive line. That's a storyline that I think a lot of people probably don't pay attention to. I think, secondly, you look at the game and say Miami outgained Virginia Tech by over 100 yards. They averaged 7 yards per play. This was a pretty good performance on aggregate for this Miami Hurricanes offense outside of the 3 turnovers that we saw. Now, I have a few notes on that. One, Cam Ward got fooled on the 2 interceptions. Obviously, was probably trying to do a little bit too much with the strip sack. There were people coming out of the woodworks that had to wait until this football game to get after Cam Ward, say, "Hey, we told you so, turnover prone quarterback." Look, Cam Ward is a difference maker. He's a playmaker. And if you want him to be a difference maker and you want him to be a playmaker, you're going to have to live with a few turnovers. Like, he's going to put the ball into some tight windows. He's going to take a look at the play. He flips the ball out to Riley Williams. Like, that's a play that a lot of coaches don't want their quarterbacks doing. But with Cam Ward, you kind of get what you signed up for. And if you get that version of Cam Ward that we've seen for 95% of the season, where it's the high level stuff, it's the Heisman Trophy caliber stuff, with just a little bit of the scratch in your head, hey, we can't do that. I think Miami's taking that every single day of the week. And quite frankly, Miami doesn't win this football game without Cam Ward because the defense struggled in a big way. And that's what I want to get into. First, missed tackles. And we don't need to go through every single missed tackle in this Miami Hurricanes football game. But when you miss 20 tackles on a Virginia Tech team that wants to run the football as much as they do, it's going to be hard to win football games. And you saw some uncharacteristic missed tackles from a lot of good players. And we talked about it right off the rip. You watch the film, you certainly agree with it. Kiko Mawinoa has been arguably the best player on this Miami Hurricanes defense outside of Ruben Bain for the last 2 years. Kid just didn't play good football games Friday night. That's allowed. Like it's probably the first time and probably the last time that we'll talk about it. We have a few clips that I want to get into about Francisco Maui Noah. One, missing tackles, but more importantly, Virginia Tech throws a lot of eye candy at you, and you could tell a lot of the Miami Hurricane linebackers were struggling with some of that pre-snap motion. And so linebacker play wasn't great. The team in terms of tackling wasn't great. You had 27 quarterback hurries, but only 0 sacks. That was probably the biggest storyline of the football game is, look, this pass rush is very, very disruptive. When you're trying to be that disruptive, you got to make sure that you're keeping a quarterback in the pocket, especially when you're playing a quarterback like Kyron Jones. 27 quarterback hurries, 0 sacks is an asinine statistic. Like you got to bring the quarterback to the ground when you have a chance to wrap up and create a negative play. There were a lot of plays that Miami had on defense that they left on the football field. Now let's get into a few plays that really changed this football game. Let's start with Miami turning the football over early in the red zone. Virginia, or not quite the red zone, but Virginia Tech getting a short field here. And you force the 3rd and 4. Lance Guidry makes a really good call. One, you're giving kind of a loaded box. You're showing a little bit of pressure. You're actually not going to bring pressure. You're going to drop into a cover 2, which I love when you're playing Kyron Drones because you want your Hurricane defenders in zone coverage, keeping an eye on him. You fire up this play. This was by far the biggest thing Miami struggled with. And this is a great play call by Lance Guidry. I mean, you end up getting Elijah Alston pretty much a free rush on Kyron Jones. In this situation, it's inexcusable to let drones outside the pocket. And if you're Elijah Alston, if you're this Miami Hurricanes coaching staff, you are preaching that, hey, he likes to do a lot of ball fakes. He can make you miss relatively routinely. You got to set your feet. You got to make sure he stays inside this pocket. Elijah Alston, way too aggressive, leaves his feet. Kyron Jones able to step up and extend the play. And then you also have a bust in the back end because you take a look back at this game, this play, and say, hey, we're just going into a base cover 2 where we're going to send 4, drop 7. You got 5 guys underneath, 2 high safeties, and you just get a bust. Not really sure what this other single high safety is doing, but he's all the way over here. And so, like, I'm not really sure what we're looking at here. It's just simply a busted coverage, but this is inexcusable to have a wide receiver running this scot-free. And again, I think it starts with keeping the quarterback in the pocket because it's very hard to stay in disciplined zones when the quarterback does extend. That being said, you can't have a bust like this. It's just it's a non-competitive coverage bust, and it leads to a touchdown. Second mistake we saw, very similar situation here. 3rd down in the red area later in the football game. Miami went to that cover 2 at first. Now they're going to go cover 0. They're going to bring 7. Virginia Tech's going to leave 6 into pass pro. So you're bringing in 1 more in a blitz than Virginia Tech can block. You're going no safety high. So you're just going cover 0, right? Everybody's in man coverage across the board. You're blitzing everybody else. Same thing with Elijah Alston. And we have a couple more plays we want to get into with this. Like Elijah Alston's got to know his responsibility here. And that is keep Kyron Jones in the pocket. Like if you can keep him in the pocket here, you have plenty of help. Now it's not a great blitz. You got guys falling over. He's just not a very disciplined pass rush. That being said, if you're Elijah Alston, you can't let Kyron Jones extend the play here because you know you're in cover 0. You know you have man coverage with no help behind you. You got to keep him in the pocket. He can. Again, this is easier said than done. Kyron Jones made some really good plays, and this is one of them. Like off his back foot, launching it to the end zone. We want to get mad at a defensive back, but that's a really long time for these guys to be in man coverage with no help over the top. And Kyron Jones makes a really good play. Wide receiver makes a good play in the football. Again, discipline in the pass rush was such a problem for Miami in this football game. It led to a couple scores that really shouldn't have happened. Next play I want to talk about. And it's a very similar 3rd down. I mean, Virginia Tech was 10 of 15 on 3rd downs. Not a good recipe to playing good defense. Very similar thing with Elijah Alston here, coming off the edge. Again, you're in kind of that. It looks to be another cover 2. You can't have this in your pass rush, right? And I don't know if it's on Elijah Alston. I don't know if it's on Tyler Barron running the stunt. I'm not quite sure who it's on. But I'm looking at Elijah Alston again because you know that Kyron Jones wants to extend plays. You can't get that upfield in your pass rush because, again, it's so easy for Kyron Jones to step up into this pocket. And you put Francisco Maui Noah in just a terrible spot where if he wants to commit to Kyron Jones, which is going to be very hard to make an open field tackle, he's toast. And if he wants to stay back and kind of carry this running back, Kyron Jones is going to tuck it, and you get what 30, almost 40-yard play. Third down. I didn't think Lance Guidry called that bad of a game on defense, but it was a massive problem in execution. And it really started. Yeah, you had some blown coverages, but it has to start with understanding what quarterback you're going against, making sure he keeps in the pocket. Now, you look at Cal next week, they do have a quarterback that can extend plays. He's not the athlete that Kyron Jones is, but Fernando Mendoza is a little bit of a playmaker. Cal's offensive line is not very good. One of the biggest keys for Miami going through this game is, hey, when we're getting after the passer and we have opportunities to get the quarterback down and keep in the pocket, we have to make sure we're doing it. Now, Virginia Tech had a lot of success running the football too, I believe over 200 yards. And I think it starts with one, you had two things that went wrong in this play, right? 3rd and 1, how many times have we seen Kiko Maui Noah just come up, fill it, and stick it and force a 4th down? We've seen it plenty. Little hesitant firing downhill. Then when he has the opportunity to wrap up Bashal Tootin, he just misses the tackle. But I think the second thing you're looking at here is Miami wants to mug this box right here on 3rd and 1. Jaden Harris is essentially your deep safety. I don't know what Jaden Harris is looking at the far left of your screen. And I get it's a read option. Kyron Jones putting you in a little bit of conflict, but Jaden Harris flying out like that, you really just can't have that. And then if your linebackers are missing a tackle, like normally you'd have a safety that's helping at the end of the play. You just don't have that. And it turns into what would have been like maybe a 10, 15-yard run to a 55-yard game-changing touchdown. I mean, this is off the heels of Cam Ward throwing a touchdown, being up potentially 21-7, getting called back because of holding. Then he throws a pick. All of a sudden, you thought you were 21-7 winning the football game to 14-14 with all the momentum going towards Virginia Tech. I mean, there were a couple of plays that, and credit Tyler Barron for a little bit of hustle there, but there were a lot of plays in this football game that kind of just got out of hand. It was a litany of errors that led to not just an explosive play for Virginia Tech, but a game-changing plays for Virginia Tech. Last thing I want to look at, and again, this is just, I think, partly you got to give credit to Virginia Tech because they run a lot of things that are very hard on front sevens to stop in the run game. You get some pre-snap motion. Again, the linebackers, this defense in general, this is early 4th quarter, we're getting whipped in terms of perimeter run game. And so what happens with Francisco Mauanoa here is he gets out. He sees pre-snap motion. He sees some of that stretch zone stuff, and he's firing out to make sure he's keeping his outside shoulder free and keeping the running back from getting the edge. He flares out way too much. Way too much space, and you know how Miami likes to be on defense, right? They are specifically the defensive line. They want to slant. They want to shoot gaps. They want to be aggressive. They want to create negative plays, which I love. I think you have the personnel to do so. But when you are getting so upfield with your defensive linemen, you got to have your linebackers making sure they're fitting the run because they're going to have opportunities for one-on-one tackles. Here, Francisco Mauano is lost. Wesley Bassint gets blocked. This is blocked up really well for Virginia Tech, and then we're missing tackles in the back end. And so you look at this Miami Hurricanes performance and say it was sloppy. This team isn't a bad team. They just came out and executed not very good against Virginia Tech in this football game. If you're a Miami Hurricane fan, yeah, it's frustrating. We don't want to spend our Friday nights stressing out like we had to. That being said, this team's a lot better than what they showed on the film against Virginia Tech. And it's almost, I know this sounds cliche, but a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Like you're able to win, but you're able to get all these guys say, hey, we still got a lot of work to do. Like we've been kind of rolling. We're looking like one of the best teams in the country. That doesn't mean we get to just chill out. Like we got to keep progressing as a team. And I think that's going to be what Mario Cristobal, this Miami Hurricanes coaching staff is preaching every single day this week, going on the road, playing a Cal team that is 3-1. We'll close it out there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with it, getting a little into the weeds here, but I think it's something that I thought was fascinating to kind of talk about. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.